Okay, so little intro on Google Chromecast. So I actually put together a few slides here. I figure first I'll go through kind of the theory, because I didn't really know exactly what Chromecast was at first, but I had a basic concept. But I'll just go through what it is and how it works, and then I'll show the code and do like a live demo. So basically, Chromecast, as you probably know, it's a way for you to get something that's on your mobile device playing on your TV. It's a drop-dead basic description. Now, unlike something like AirPlay, Apple AirPlay basically uses your mobile device as kind of a middleman. So you're actually bringing your media down from the cloud through your device onto your TV. That's how AirPlay works. Chromecast is a little bit different. You're using your mobile device as content discovery and to discover the actual Chromecast device. And once you get that all together, you're sending the stream over to the device, and that stream goes directly from the cloud to the Chromecast in your TV. And your mobile device remains connected to it and can send information, can send messages to it. So you have control, like to play, pause, seek, set the volume, change the stream, and other custom messages as well. And likewise, the Chromecast can send messages back to any mobile devices that are connected. You can send messages or events, to know when you've started, stopped, any errors or anything like that. So to set up a Chromecast application, you actually need two applications. You need the sender application, which lives on the mobile device, and this could be an iOS application or a Android application. It also runs with Google Chrome on the desktop or Chrome OS, so you can cast from there. But mainly, I'll be showing you an Android application, but I think for iOS it's probably very similar. And then on the Chromecast device, you run a receiver application. And this is an actual application that's loaded from the web into the device and is your media player for that TV device. So the sender application has a few different responsibilities. One is it discovers Chromecast devices on the network. It allows the user to choose which device they want to cast to. It establishes a connection to that chosen device, and then it gives it a stream or audio stream, video stream, photos to start playing, and then it remains in contact with it to send and receive messages from that device. The receiver application obviously listens for messages from the sender app, plays any media streams to it, and sends messages back. So the receiver apps, there are three different types of receiver apps, and these are basically just HTML5 applications. It's straight up HTML document with CSS for styling and JavaScript for logic. And that application would contain a standard HTML5 video element, or if you're playing audio, it would contain an audio element, or if you're sending it images, those would be straight HTML5 images. And like I said, there's three different types of receiver apps. One is the default receiver. So this you don't need to do anything for. You just say, I want to play this stream with a default receiver, and I'll show you what that looks like. And you basically just send it your audio, video, images. You can control it, play, pause, seek, change the volume, and it will send you back whatever messages it needs to send you back. The second type of receiver app is a styled receiver. This is basically the same as a default receiver, but it allows you to supply a CSS document, and you can style the background, a logo, a progress bar, a splash image, and watermark. And this is what some of those elements look like. So you have the background, every logo. If you're playing video, this is your progress bar and watermark. And if you're playing audio, this is your splash screen. And then if you're playing audio, that's your progress bar and watermark. So you can style all those just by supplying a CSS document. And then the third type of receiver is the most complex, is the custom receiver. And this is basically you do everything from scratch. You create an HTML document, you give it styles, you create JavaScript that does the logic. There's a Chromecast API that you load. It's a JavaScript API. You just add it as a script tag in there. And this gives you, certain objects that you can use and access to send all your messages, receive all your messages. You can create any elements, basically any styles that you want, and implement any JS logic that you want. So you can do your advertising in there, your mid-rolls, pre-rolls, analytics, whatever you want to do in there. It's all just straight up JavaScript and HTML page. There are some restrictions on what you can do. You can't have any interactive elements. There's no mouse cursor or touch screen on the TV. There's no way for user to directly interact with the page, with the elements on the page. So you can't have any buttons, inputs, nothing like that. Any control of the app is done via your mobile application, which is sending messages to the receiver application and receiving messages back. So you got to think when you're creating a UI, you don't want to have anything that requires touch because that'll be stripped right out anyway. And a couple of other interesting points is you have to host the app files on a secure site. So Google doesn't host your application. You host it somewhere and you give it the URL. And you register the app with Google, and when you register it, you get an ID, and you use that ID in your sender app to specify which receiver you want to use, and I'll show you all that. So that's basically that. I'll show you the, this is the developer console. So this is the application I've set up. And so this is the ID that it gave me when I set it up. So you see that in the code if I want to use that. And what you get here is you give it a name. It's a custom receiver. This is the URL that I'm hosting the files on. Notice HTTPS. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that you would add when you're actually going to publish it. But basically, just the name and the URL is all you really need to start testing. And for testing purposes, you need to set up you need to register a Chromecast device just by giving the serial number. So I did that with my own personal device. That allows this to receive test applications. Okay, any questions so far? If not, I'll jump right into the code.
Yeah, not anything yet.
Okay.
Not for me either.
Cool. So this is the application I created. This is just, I'm creating another application as a proof of concept. I just made this other one seriously scaled down just to show the bare bones of what you need to set up a stream. So first of all, in your manifest, you need this, well, first of all, someone want to say something? No?
Yeah, I was going to say, can you bump up the font just a little bit?
Oh, sure, yeah. I don't know how to do that. Preferences. Huh. Anyone knows how to change the font on Android Studio? Shout out. Oh, there we go. How's that look?
Yeah, it looks better. Maybe bump it up just a little bit more.
More than that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool. All right, so first of all, our Gradle build file. So you need to add a couple libraries. You need your Play Services library, and you need your Media Router library. So those you just add these two lines in there, and that's all you really need to do for your build. In your manifest, you need to set up a GMS version, which is your Google Media Services, I think. And that's just an integer in resources there. Let's see. In the here, I just added a button to the screen. It's enabled for disabled for now. It says play. And so basically, what you want in a Chromecast application, you need a button or some kind of UI to launch the Chromecast and start casting. And so there's one that you can use automatically. It's you put it in the menu, so you have your main menu XML file. And so I just add an item to my menu, and I give it an action provider class of this Meteor Route Action Provider. It's a class, and you'll see how we use that. And now we just jump right into our main activity. So basically down here in the onCreate options menu, this is when, after the app launches, it creates the menu. And this is where we get this button. So we find the item, which is the new Media Route menu item, and we get the use this method on it, get action provider, and that will give us that class that we set up in the XML, and that gives us our Media Route Action Provider, which is just a Chromecast class. And once we have that, we set the route selector to this Media Route Selector, and I'll show you that in a second. That just sets up that button, so when you click it, it kicks off the Chromecast stuff. So back up at the top, we set up a bunch of Chromecast objects. So this is typical Java. There's tons of objects and interfaces, and nothing's very simple. You have all kinds of builders and objects to create and do everything. So we have a media router. This is what routes the media, obviously. So this is what's saying, okay, I want to send this media to this location. And you have a media route selector, and this is what lets you select the routes. You know, say you have multiple Chromecasts or a Google TV or something like that. This is what lets you select which route you're going to send it to. You have your media router callback. This is what lets you know when you're connected or when you're disconnected from a particular route. Your cast device, which is it's a software object that represents the Chromecast physical device. You have another listener, cast listener, which receives other kinds of information and data from that device. This is your Google API client, which kind of sets up all the calls back and forth. And this is your remote media player, which is, it's like a media player, but when you say play and pause and seek on this media player, you're actually controlling the media player on the Chromecast device. So it's kind of a proxy for your actual media player. Then we have our receiver ID. So remember I said when we create a receiver app, we get that ID. So this is the ID of the app that I created. You saw that in the dev console. If you want to use the default media receiver, you can just use this constant here, default media receiver application ID. And of course, you need a media URL, which I just grabbed a movie trailer. And of course, I just have some basic in-app logic for my button and whether it's playing or has loaded media. So then when I create, basically I set my view, I set up the button so that when I click, I basically toggle back and forth between playing or pause. And that's done with this toggle play, which we'll look at later. And then I create my media router. So the media router itself is a singleton, so I get the instance of that media router. And then again, that's what allows me to send stuff to different places. The media route selector is the UI that's going to let me choose which Chromecast I want to broadcast to. And I create that with this builder, and I tell it what kind of devices I'm looking for, the control category. So I'm looking for devices that can do remote playback. And then I build that selector. Then I create a callback. This lets me know when I've selected a particular route or when I've unselected a route. And so basically when the user selected a route, this method here is going to be called. And that's going to get my cast device, the device that I've chosen. And I have this method called connect client. So now that I've chosen a device, I need to connect to that device. So I create a connection callbacks object. This lets me know when I'm connected and when my connection is suspended. So when I connect, I'm going to call launch receiver app. So now I'm connected to my device. I want to tell my device which receiver application to load on that device. Essentially, I'm telling which web page to load to play my media remotely. And I have my, if I fail, I'll want to handle that better. Then I also have to create a cast listener, which listens for status changes on the device. And then I need some cast options, of course. It ties everything together. Then I create my Google API client, which ties everything together. It ties the API, my options builder, my callbacks, my failed listeners, and builds that. And then I have my Google API client, and I can call connect. And that will connect me to my device. And so when that is connected to the device, then this unconnected callback is called and calls launch receiver app. Launch receiver app basically says that I want to use this Google API client to launch the receiver with this specific ID. Right now I'm using a default receiver, so I'm saying on this device that I've disconnected to, launch the default receiver. When I get a call back from that, I check it's a success. So it has launched my application. I can get some various information from that metadata. Not doing anything with that now. Now I want to create my remote player. So create my new remote media player. Again, listen for some status updates on it, some metadata updates, and then I set the message receive callbacks. This is letting me know when messages, how I get messages back from the receiver application. And then I request the status of that player, and I get the result. And if that result is success, then I am connected to my remote receiver application, which is now running in the Chromecast and displaying on the TV. And now because I can send media to this, I'm going to enable my play pause button. And now my play pause button is enabled. When I toggle it, when I click it, basically I just have some basic play pause logic here. If the remote media player is playing, then I pause it. And I change the label. I said it was playing to false. If it's not playing but it has loaded media, then it must be in a paused state. So I just tell it to play. And if it's not playing and it hasn't loaded the media, then I need to load the media. And I call this load media function. So this is where I set up the stream. And this is done with, again, more great Java objects. I create a media metadata object, which tells it what type of media I'm sending it. Could be audio, video, images. I give it some metadata. Right now I'm just setting the title, which is the Minions movie. Then I want to create a media info object, so I create a media info builder. Set the content type, the stream type, give it the metadata that I just created up here. And now I have my media info, and I can load that media info into my remote player. And if that is successful, then it's going to start playing. And I listen for some exceptions, and that's basically it. So again, we We discover the devices. When those are discovered, we let the user choose a device. When the user has chosen a device, we connect to that device. When we successfully connect to the device, then we load the receiver application on that device. When we load that receiver application, when that's successful, then we can set up our player. When the player is set up, then we can send it some media and start controlling it. I can just run this app. Now, any questions before I actually run this?
No, not yet. I mean, I think I'll have more questions once you like show the website, because I have questions on how it receives stuff and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Oh yeah, I'm going to before I this is the remote application I'm working on, and let's see. I know I need to bump this up. So this is I took one of the HTML5 players that Kenny sent me, kind of a reference player. There's a whole lot of stuff in here. Like here's some UI stuff that we don't actually need because we don't have UI control directly. So most of this I just used as is. I stripped some of the stuff out that wasn't applicable, and basically this connect Chromecast is this is the main code that you need in a receiver. This is the vital code that you need. You need to create a media manager, and this is what wraps the player. The EMUI player is just an HTML5 video element. So you wrap that inside of a media manager. And to handle events on the media manager object, they do a weird thing. It just has an onload method, and it has a bunch of other methods as well. But there's no way to say like add a load listener. You just have to overwrite the onload method. And their suggested way of so it has some default functionality already. So they say to save the initial onload as the onload orig, and then assign your new function to the onload, and within that call onload orig, passing that event. This is basically how you call the super method that you're overriding. So really you don't need any of this as well, because if you just create your media manager and then your cast receiver manager and start that, this whole app will work just as is. I'm overriding the onload because when I load some media, I want to get the event data. I want to get the metadata out of that and get the title of the media that I just got, which I sent back when I created that metadata over on the Android side. And I'm just setting a text element in the UI. So basically, like I said, this line here, creating your media manager and creating your cast receiver manager and starting that is all you really need, as well as obviously a media element to play the stuff in. But you can build on this, and you see here I started to work with ads, and I'll be working with analytics as well and everything else. But let me just go ahead and get this started here. There. Okay. Reception. Okay. So we're just going to fire up this app here on my mobile device. You can see my TV behind me that's running Chromecast already. So let's see. Takes a second. Gradle executing tasks. Installing. So we are. Up here, you have that's the menu button that we set up originally. If I click that, so now I have my, this is my media route selector UI. So if I had multiple Chromecasts, they would be in a list here. Since I only have one, it's just showing me that. So I click that one, and that's it's connecting, it's launching the app. Now you see the TV screen went dark, and you have the logo there. So it's loaded the receiver application on the Chromecast now, and that all went through and was successful. So my play button is now enabled. And also, when you click up here, this gives you a volume control as well. And you can see as I control that volume, it also controls right on the TV there. But we can press play here. You see that cycled into pause. And now we have our metadata that was picked up. And we're playing the movie. And this is the default receiver, I believe, yeah. So if I press pause here, see this is your default, your progress bar. It shows your title and so forth. So that is that, and I just disable my button again accidentally. So any questions on that so far?
No, it's
Yeah,
very cool.
I have a couple questions. So the media object from Chromecast that's in JavaScript that wraps the video element.
Yeah.
Does that video element still get the standard video events that would come out of the HTML5 video player?
Yes, it does. In fact, I'm getting an echo here, but their recommended way is actually to listen for the events on the native media element, the video element. You can also listen for events on that JavaScript object they give you, but they actually recommend to listen to it on the native element, which is what I'm doing. So that reference app actually has a whole bunch of listeners in there, and you know, I'm just using those. I'm not disconnecting those or anything. So basically, you know, you can use the API just to send messages back and forth, and your app otherwise behaves just like a normal HTML5 media application.
All right, yeah, and another question. So when you said the native object, you're talking about the native video element object, right?
Right. So we have the video element. You can listen to events on that. I'll share my screen again. I'll show you what's going on in the code. So here we have this bind events. So we're listening to all these things: duration, change, playing, emptied, ended, error, pause, progress, time update. And these are all listened to directly on the UI player element, which is the native video element. So I'm not changing any of that. So all these functions continue to work. So this go down here. So on video ended, on video duration changed, on video fail, load progress changed, all this stuff paused, started. All this stuff is being listened for directly on the native HTML5 video element. I'm not changing any of that, and all that's working just fine. And again, that's how they recommend that you do it.
Okay, yeah, cool, because that kind of solves the analytics. That makes the analytics like trivial at that part.
Yeah, exactly. So
the other question I would have the other question I would have is around the ad stuff. So
Yep.
obviously, like, you know, coming since the video is kind of signaled from the Sender app.
Yep.
In the case of something like Freewheel or any other kind of you know, ad framework, since we'd be including the ad framework on the page and it kind of takes over the video HTML element itself and calls the load and everything, it's not really part of the you know, that other kind of cast media object. Would that still work?
Yeah.
So it would still work. Like, it can actually play a video. You know, it can load a progressive video as well. Like, it doesn't have to be signaled from the actual Sender app.
No, not at all. Actually, you see what I'm doing here. What I started to do here. So this is on load. It was on load. And normally this just starts playing into video. So I was overriding this and us having this code. So if the ad config was enabled, then I'm requesting the ad. And this all worked. So I was requesting an ad. I was getting back an ad request successfully. And because I wasn't doing this on a ridge load, if it was requesting ads, so the video was not playing. So it wasn't doing the usual stuff. So it was waiting. And then I could, I wasn't able to get ads because they weren't configured to have pre-rolls. But if they were, I would have gotten an ad. It would have played just, I assume, by the code that's already written here. And that was done. I would have gotten the you know, on ad complete or whatever it would be, and at that point I could call this method or, you know, do whatever I want, say to load the media that was loaded via Chromecast.
And do you have any idea what would happen with, like, say, a mid-roll or a the case of a post-roll? Because, you know, obviously, like, in the case of a mid-roll, typically what we'd have to do is kind of shut down the stream and then re-request it and request it at a point in time.
Yeah.
And then a post-roll is a little bit easy because the stream's already kind of done. You can shut it down and just play the post-rolls.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't say easy, but easier, obviously. So I'm just curious, like, since you've played with it, like, is a mid-roll possible? Is a post-roll possible?
I don't see why it wouldn't be. I mean, you'd have to somehow, you know, I'm not sure exactly how you use the media manager and the cast receiver. I mean, I guess only it'd be the media manager here, but I'm sure you could get the stream out of it and, you know, stop it and restart at a different point.
Yeah, so do you think you can control the stream and stuff from the actual the website of things? So, like, in this code, you think you can gain control over it for a second?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can do that more. I'm just getting it, looking at ads and analytics, but I can look at that kind of control. But I'm sure the this cast receiver media manager has stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, those were my questions for right now, so you can go ahead.
I have pretty good documentation too. So this is the media manager class. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess you'd probably have to do the starting and stopping through the HTML element itself. But yeah, again, I can dig into that. I guess the only other thing I want to show you was so I use the default receiver there. I can go back up here and use the receiver that I set up, and so just by changing that receiver ID. I should be able to change that. Okay, so I got that loading to my Chromecast button. Choose my cast device. It connects. Play button is enabled. I'll play. So see, this is just the HTML. I set it myself, so it has the title up at the top, and it has the progress bar that I made myself, as well as the time and duration down at the bottom. And I have that so when you pause, all that stuff becomes visible. When you play, it waits like 5 seconds, and then goes away. And you pause, it comes back again. So that was all relatively easy to set up. It's just straight HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So you can do pretty much anything you want with the UI. And then I think the toughest stuff will be, what you just brought up, Kenny, is as far as messing with the stream midstream and starting and stopping it and inserting other stuff in the middle of it, which I think would be the toughest stuff in just a regular app.
Yeah, and we already have that logic to some extent. It would just be a matter of like figuring out how to manipulate that object to do it.
Right.
A couple other questions. When you make a request for the stream, you're just passing it a URL. So, for example, if I wanted to, and I have a DRM-based stream that I have to actually, put a token request on, I can just add that as like a query param or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I haven't done that yet, but there's documentation for that. You can send any kind of messages and data back and forth as well. So I don't know if you put it on the request itself, because there's all kinds of stuff in that metadata that you can add. Basically, I just added the title, but there's all kinds of other stuff that you can add to that request. So I'm not sure if you do it within that request or you would send another message with the token, but I did see something about that. I didn't get too deeply into it, but definitely all.
Yeah, so that brings up another question I had. So are you able to basically send any type of message back and forth? So for example, like you could execute arbitrary like functions in JavaScript. They don't necessarily have to be part of like this media player.
What do you mean?
So for example, like you have, simplest form, say I have, some text field that I have on the screen, and
Okay,
I want to write to that text field, and it's not really part of the media object or whatever, but I want to change something on it. I don't know what it is,
Yeah, you can. The concept of and you
so you have custom messages.
Yeah, you just namespace the message and you send the message, and then you look for that namespace, you pull the data out of that message and do whatever you want with
it. And then I guess the other question I had was, and this kind of depends on the player, is there something in the API, because I don't think that there is in the HTML video element itself, is there the ability to play at offset?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I mean those are basically all the questions that I had.
Yeah, because if you think of it, regular app, you might have the video playing on the application itself on the mobile device, and then you switch over to playing it on the Chromecast. So you could either start it from scratch, but if you're watching a movie, you might want to start it halfway in. So that's all. There's a bunch of play methods that are overridden. So play with an offset or just play.
Yeah, and so for the most part, like, all the logic that we had in the JavaScript to control it, to play and to pause and all that stuff, like you rip all that stuff out, and it's just basically this media object that's being controlled by the app itself, right? And then
Yeah,
you're just listening to events.
Yeah, there's two ways to do it. You can let that control it directly, or you could, like, remember when I overrode that onload method, you could override the onPlay method and do what you want. Instead of letting it do its own thing, you could just call your own play functionality or pause functionality or whatever you want. Or override it, call the base implementation and add stuff to it, whatever you want to do. Or you can just let Chromecast handle those messages directly and start and stop the stream.
Cool. Yeah, it looks good. Is all the stuff up on GitHub?
It's not quite. I do have a repo there.
Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, man, that's it for me.
Okay.
John, did you have any questions?
No, you have them all my questions. It was a joke.
Very funny.
I do have one question. Where'd you get that Penn State hoodie?
I got that at a secondhand store near Infrared 5.
Nice.
It was one summer they had the air conditioning blasting so much that I was freezing.
Oh, right.
And I couldn't get anything warm, so I went to the secondhand store and bought a hoodie.
Yeah. Well, your presentation was awesome.
What's that?
I said your presentation was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Because I literally had no idea how it worked, and now
yeah, I didn't know.
Much greater appreciation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people have a clue how much stuff you actually have to do to get the video to play on there. They think, oh, you just you write one line of code and it broadcasts to the TV.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very easy concept. You have two apps playing. They send messages back and forth to each other. It's basically Red 5, John.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Java, there's all these objects and builders and callbacks and listeners and crazy amount of stuff you have to do to establish that communication. This whole chain of establish this and then establish that and then establish something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I bet you could write a wrapper for all the stuff and boil it down to one line of code.
Yeah. Play video on.
Cool. Well, hopefully I can figure out how to edit this thing too, and I'll put it up there on the worldwide intranet.
Yeah, it'll take a while to process. Do your best to process. When we end this,
Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna get back to the grind over here. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.